The silk bedsheets were tangled around their naked bodies when Chidinma Okafor pushed open the bedroom door of her matrimonial home in Victoria Island, Lagos. Her husband Emeka's rhythmic grunts filled the air, mixing with a woman's high-pitched moans, but it wasn't Chidinma's voice echoing through the room she'd decorated with their wedding photos just 5 years ago. What would you do if you walked in on your spouse with someone you trusted? Hit like if you've ever experienced betrayal, and comment below where you're watching from. The woman beneath Emeka turned her head, and Chidinma's knees buckled. It was Adana, her younger sister. The same sister she'd raised after their parents died. The same sister whose university fees she'd paid with her own salary as a senior accountant at First Bank. The same sister who'd moved into their guest room 3 months ago, crying about a bad breakup. Chidi, Emeka scrambled off the bed, his 6-foot frame suddenly looking small and pathetic. Chidinma's Hermes handbag slipped from her fingers, hitting the Italian marble floor with a crack that echoed like gunfire. The betrayal wasn't just about infidelity in marriage, it was about family, trust, and everything she'd built being demolished in a single moment. Adana wrapped the sheet around herself, mascara already streaking down her 23-year-old face. "Sister, please, I can explain." "Explain?" Chidinma's voice came out as a whisper, then built to a roar. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my husband under my roof? Eating my food? Wearing the clothes I bought you?" The domestic betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Chidinma had left work early to surprise Emeka with his favorite pepper soup from Mama Put's restaurant down the street. Instead, she'd found her entire world crumbling in her own bedroom, on sheets she'd changed that morning before leaving for the bank. Emeka reached for his boxer shorts, his dark skin glistening with sweat and guilt. "It just happened, Chidi. We didn't mean for it to go this far." "How long?" Chidinma demanded, her Igbo accent thickening with rage. "How long has this been going on?" The silence stretched too long. Adana's eyes filled with tears, but Chidinma felt nothing but ice spreading through her chest. Chidinma sat in her silver Mercedes outside her own house for 2 hours, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone pale against her dark skin. The Lagos night air was thick with humidity and exhaust fumes from the constant traffic on Amadou Bello Way. Inside her beautiful 4-bedroom home, her husband and sister were probably laughing at her, celebrating their victory in this twisted power play. Her phone rang, her best friend Yemi calling for the 3rd time. Chidinma finally answered. "Chidi, where are you? You said you'd be at my shop an hour ago for the fabric delivery." Yemi owned a successful boutique in Lekki, selling custom-made Ankara and lace designs to Lagos's elite women. "I caught them, Yemi." Chidinma's voice cracked. "In our bed. Emeka and Adana." The line went silent except for the sound of Yemi's sharp intake of breath. Then, "I'm coming to get you. Don't move." 20 minutes later, Chidinma was sitting in Yemi's duplex in Lekki Phase 1, wrapped in a throw blanket despite the warm night, while Yemi paced the living room in her colorful Ankara wrapper and matching head tie. "That useless man," Yemi spat? "After everything you've done for him. You paid for his mother's surgery last year. You bought him that Range Rover. You've been carrying that marriage on your back like a Christmas goat." Chidinma stared at the geometric patterns on Yemi's Persian rug. "He's threatening me. He has evidence of something I did at work, something that could cost me my job, maybe even my license." Yemi stopped pacing. "What kind of evidence?" Chidinma explained the property developer situation, watching her friend's expression shift from anger to concern to something more calculating. "So he's been planning this," Yemi said slowly. "This wasn't just about him being weak and your sister being a homewrecker. This was a setup." The pieces started clicking together in Chidinma's mind. 3 months ago, right after Adana moved in, Emeka had suddenly taken an interest in her work. He'd ask about her clients, her projects, scroll through her laptop while she was cooking. She'd thought he was finally trying to understand her career, to support her ambition. Instead, he'd been gathering ammunition. "The house," Chidinma said suddenly. "He wants the house. He's been pressuring me for months to put—" Chidinma's fingers tightened around the flash drive hidden in her bra, her only weapon in this domestic warfare. She straightened her spine, channeling the same confidence she used when presenting to the bank's board of directors. "I'm taking what's mine, Emeka. My laptop, my documents, my dignity." She kept her voice steady, though her heart was racing like Lagos traffic during rush hour. Emeka descended the stairs slowly, like a predator stalking prey. At 42, he still had the athletic build that had attracted her 9 years ago at that wedding reception in Abuja, but now she saw the cruelty in the set of his jaw, the calculation in his eyes. "You're not going anywhere with my property," he said, reaching for the laptop. "Your property?" Chidinma laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even her. "I bought this. I bought everything in this house. The furniture, the appliances, even those boxer shorts you're wearing came from my salary." Adana crept down the stairs, her young face twisted with an emotion Chidinma couldn't quite read. Guilt? Fear? Or something worse? Sister, please, Adana said. Can't we talk about this like family? The word family detonated something inside Chidinma. She'd been holding on to her composure by a thread, and that thread just snapped. Family? Chidinma's voice rose. You call this family? I raised you, Adana. When Mama and Papa died in that crash on Orphan Road, who took you in? Uncle Obi wanted to send you to the village to work on the farm. Who fought for you? Who paid for your education at Covenant University? Who bought your books, your clothes, your phone? Tears streamed down Adana's face. I know all that. You know nothing. Chidinma cut her off. You're 23 years old, sleeping with your sister's husband, and you think tears will fix this? You think saying, please, will erase what you've done? Emeka moved between them, his hand raised, not quite threatening, but close enough. Lower your voice. The security guard will hear you, and I don't need the whole estate knowing my wife is hysterical. Hysterical? Chidinma repeated. You think finding your wife in bed with her sister is hysterical? No, Emeka. This is clarity. For the first time in 5 years, I see exactly who you are. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Emeka's expression shifted from confidence to alarm. What are you doing? Documenting this moment. Documenting that you've locked me out of my own house, that you're keeping me here against my will. Isn't that unlawful detention? My lawyer will love this. Emeka lunged for her phone, but Chidinma was faster. She'd already sent the video to Yemi, to her lawyer Barrister Adeyemi, and to the cloud. Years of working in banking had taught her to always have backups. You want to play games? Emeka's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I'll show you games. Tomorrow morning, I'm sending that video of you to the bank's compliance department. By noon, you'll be fired. By evening, you might be arrested for fraud. Do it, Chidinma said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. Because the moment you do, I'm sending your laptop contents to every person in your family, your business partners, and that property developer whose project you've been skimming money from. The color drained from Emeka's face. You're bluffing. Am I? Chidinma patted her chest where the flash drive rested. You think you're the only one who knows how to gather evidence? You think I didn't notice the discrepancies in your bank statements? The wire transfers from Alhaji Musa's construction company to your secret account? The account you think I don't know about? She discovered it by accident 3 weeks ago, during one of her sleepless nights when she'd gone through their joint finances. An account at Diamond Bank with regular deposits, none of which appeared on their tax returns. Adana's eyes widened. Baby, what is she talking about? Shut up, Adana, Emeka snapped, his mask of control finally cracking. No, little sister, let me tell you what your baby has been doing, Chidinma continued, feeling a dark satisfaction at watching Emeka squirm. While you thought he loved you, he was. The police station in Ikoyi smelled of stale sweat, old paper, and desperation. Chidinma sat across from Inspector Taiwo in an interrogation room, her navy blue business suit pressed and perfect despite the fact that she'd barely slept. Her lawyer, Barrister Adeyemi, sat beside her, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd built a reputation defending high-profile financial cases in Lagos. Mrs. Okafor, Inspector Taiwo began, flipping through a thick file, your husband has provided us with substantial evidence that you've been manipulating accounts at First Bank for personal gain. My husband is a liar who's sleeping with my 23-year-old sister, Chidinma said flatly. This is retaliation because I discovered his affair and his own financial crimes. Inspector Taiwo raised an eyebrow. That's a serious counter-accusation. Barrister Adeyemi slid a flash drive across the desk. Everything you need is on there. Bank statements showing my client's husband has been receiving kickbacks from a construction company. Video evidence of him threatening my client. And proof that he's been planning this frame-up for months. The inspector plugged the drive into his computer, and Chidinma watched his expression change as he reviewed the files. The edited videos of her that Emeka had created were damning, but so were the unedited versions she'd found. Side by side, it was obvious which were fabricated. This changes things, Inspector Taiwo muttered. He looked up at Chidinma with something like respect. Why didn't you report his fraud when you discovered it? Because he's my husband, Chidinma said quietly. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just worked harder, earned more, loved him better, he'd change. But you can't love someone into being decent. You can't work hard enough to earn loyalty that should have been freely given. The inspector nodded slowly. I'll need to bring Mr. Okafor in for questioning. Do that, Barrister Adeyemi said briskly. And while you're at it, you might want to look into Alhaji Musa Muhammad's construction company. I believe you'll find an extensive network of fraud that extends far beyond my client's marriage. By the time Chidinma left the station 3 hours later, she felt like she'd aged a decade. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop, messages from colleagues at the bank, friends asking if the rumors were true, and surprisingly, a text from Adana, "Sister, we need to talk. I made a terrible mistake." Chidinma deleted the message without responding. Some betrayals couldn't be walked back with a simple apology. She drove to Yemi's boutique in Lekki, needing to see a friendly face. The shop was busy with customers browsing through racks of colorful Ankara prints and elaborate lace fabrics. Yemi was helping a woman choose between 2 shades of purple when she spotted Chidinma and immediately handed the customer to her assistant. "How bad?" Yemi asked, leading her to the back office. "Bad enough that I might lose everything," Chidinma admitted. "But also bad enough that Emeka might end up in Kirikiri prison." She filled Yemi in on the police interview, watching her friend's expression cycle through shock, anger, and fierce satisfaction. "Good," Yemi said when she finished. "That man deserves worse than prison. But Chidi, even if you clear your name, what about the bank? You know how these Nigerian institutions are, they don't care about the truth, only about their reputation." As if summoned by her words, Chidinma's phone rang. The caller ID showed Mr. Okonkwo, the bank's managing director. "Mrs. Okafor," his deep voice rumbled when she answered. "I think you need to come to my office. Now." The drive to the bank's headquarters on Marina felt like a funeral procession. Chidinma had worked at First Bank for 8 years, climbing from a junior accountant to senior manager through sheer determination and talent. She'd brought in major clients, saved the bank millions through her careful financial planning, mentored younger staff members. And now it could all end because of a cheating spouse's revenge plot. Mr. Okonkwo's corner office overlooked the Lagos harbor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that usually offered a calming view of the water. Today, the gray clouds gathering over the ocean felt ominous. "Sit down, Chidinma," Mr. Okonkwo said, his use of her first name making her stomach drop. He was a distinguished man in his 60s, his gray beard neatly trimmed, his agbada spotless. "Sir, I can explain." He held up a hand. "Before you say anything, I want you to know that I've reviewed all the evidence. Your husband's allegations, the police report, and the counter-evidence your lawyer provided." Chidinma held her breath. "I've also reviewed your work here at First Bank. Your record is impeccable. The situation with Alhaji Musa's accounts, yes, you bent some rules, but you didn't break them. You saved him from excessive taxation legally." Even her phone started ringing. Her mother's sister in Enugu. Her pastor. Her colleague from the bank. Everyone who'd received the email, calling for explanations, for denials, for the truth. But in a society that still judged women far more harshly than men, the truth didn't matter. The damage was already done. Chidinma sat in Yemi's car outside the boutique, staring at her phone as it rang and rang, each call a reminder that Emeka had just launched the most devastating attack yet. He couldn't destroy her professionally anymore, so he was going to destroy her socially, emotionally, publicly. This was more than infidelity. More than domestic betrayal. This was complete warfare. Can Chidinma recover from this public disgrace? How do you fight back when your private life becomes public scandal? Comment what you would do. This revenge story is getting darker. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss how Chidinma strikes back. Share this with your friends who love intense African marriage drama. 3 days after the email scandal, Chidinma sat in her childhood church in Surulere, surrounded by whispers. Our Lady of Perpetual Help Catholic Church had been her sanctuary since she was a little girl, but now it felt like a courtroom where she'd already been found guilty. The elderly women in their Sunday best turned away as she passed. The men who'd once greeted her father with respect now studied their prayer books with sudden fascination. Only Yemi sat beside her, solid and unwavering, her Ankara dress a bright splash of loyalty in a sea of judgment. Father Benedict gave his sermon about forgiveness and redemption, but his eyes kept drifting to Chidinma, and she knew he'd received the email too. After Mass, as she tried to slip out through the side door, he called her name. "Chidinma, a word please." In his office, surrounded by crucifixes and pictures of saints, Father Benedict folded his hands on his desk. He'd baptized her, confirmed her, officiated her wedding to Emeka. He'd been a constant presence through her parents' death, her struggles to raise Adana, her journey to success. "My child," he began gently, "these are serious allegations." "They're lies, Father," Chidinma said firmly. "My husband is trying to destroy my reputation because I exposed his fraud and his affair with my sister." Father Benedict's weathered face creased with concern. "I want to believe you, Chidinma. But the photos were private. Between a husband and wife. Or what we were supposed to be." She felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. "Is that my sin, Father? That I trusted my husband? That I loved him enough to be vulnerable with him?" Of course not. He sighed. But you know how people talk. The scandal is affecting the church community. Perhaps it would be best if you step down from the choir, from your position on the Women's Council, just until this settles. The words hit like a physical blow. You're asking me to hide? To act ashamed when I've done nothing wrong? I'm asking you to be wise, my child. Sometimes strategic retreat is necessary. Chidinma stood, her legs shaky but her resolve hardening like concrete. No, father. I won't hide. I won't let Emika's lies drive me from my own church, my own community. If people want to judge me based on manipulated photos and poisonous emails, that's their choice. But I won't make it easier for them by disappearing. She walked out of his office with her head high, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed her across the church compound. Back at Yemi's house, Chidinma found her friend on the phone, arguing with someone in rapid Yoruba. When she hung up, her expression was troubled. That was my supplier, Yemi explained. She's heard the rumors about you. She wants to know if I'm still associating with you, if your loose morals might affect my business. Chidinma felt her heart sink. Yemi, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to touch you. Stop, Yemi cut her off. I told her that you're my sister, and if she has a problem with that, she can take her overpriced lace elsewhere. I'm not abandoning you because your husband is a snake. The loyalty was overwhelming. Chidinma had lost so much, her marriage, her sister, her home, her reputation. But she still had Yemi, and right now, that felt like everything. Her phone buzzed. Barrister Adeyemi, asking her to come to the office immediately. The law office in Ikoyi was modern and air-conditioned, a welcome relief from the humid Lagos afternoon. Barrister Adeyemi looked up from her computer screen, her expression grim. Emika's playing dirty, she said without preamble. He's filed for divorce, citing adultery and mental cruelty on your part. He's claiming you were abusive throughout the marriage, that you controlled all the finances to keep him dependent, and that you deliberately drove a wedge between him and Adana. Chidinma felt sick. He's accusing me of what he did. Classic manipulation tactic. And there's more, he's demanding sole ownership of the house, claiming he needs it because you've destroyed his reputation and he can't afford to rent elsewhere. He says your false accusations have cost him business opportunities. This is insane. It's strategy, Barrister Adeyemi corrected. He files first, controls the narrative, paints himself as the victim. But we have ammunition too. The question is, how far are you willing to take this? Chidinma thought about the past week, the betrayal, the public humiliation, the loss of her place in her church community. She thought about Emika sleeping peacefully in her bed with her sister while her world burned. She thought about the years she'd spent building him up, supporting his failed businesses, believing in his potential. As far as it takes, she said. I want everything. The house, the cars, half of whatever money he's hidden. And I want him to publicly admit what he did, the affair, the fraud, the manipulation. I want his name dragged through the same mud he's thrown at me. Barrister Adeyemi smiled, sharp and dangerous. Then let's give him a war. Over the next 2 weeks, Chidinma threw herself into the legal battle with the same determination she'd once applied to her career. She documented everything, every text message Emika had sent her, every bank transaction, every business deal. She tracked down people he'd cheated in his various ventures. She built a case that would leave him with nothing. But the emotional manipulation continued. Emika started showing up at places he knew she'd be, the bank, Yemi's boutique, her favorite restaurant in Victoria Island. He'd stand there, just watching, a silent threat. Sometimes Adana was with him, clinging to his arm, her young face haunted but defiant. I found photos on his phone last night, Adana continued, words tumbling out in a rush. Messages going back 3 years. He's been supporting her, paying for an apartment in Aja, sending money every month. The boy looks just like him, sister. Same eyes, same smile. And there's more, he promised to marry her once he got the house from you. He told her the same things he told me. That you were cold, controlling, that the marriage was dead. He's been playing all of us. Chidinma's legs gave out. She slid down against the car, sitting on the dusty parking lot ground in her expensive suit, not caring about the dirt or the stares from passing colleagues. 3 years. Emika had had a whole other family for 3 years. While she'd been working overtime to pay their bills, believing they were building a future together, he'd been building a completely different life with another woman. And Adana, stupid, naive Adana, had just been another pawn in whatever sick game he was playing. Why are you telling me this? Chidinma asked, her voice hollow. Adana crouched down beside her, tears streaming down her young face. Because I was wrong. So wrong. I thought he loved me. I thought you didn't appreciate him, didn't see how special he was. But he never loved either of us. He just saw what he could take. And I helped him hurt you, The one person who's always protected me, always loved me, always been there. You slept with my husband. I know. Adana's voice broke. And I'll never forgive myself. But sister, please, he's planning something. I heard him on the phone yesterday with some men. They're going to come to the house, make it look like a robbery. They're going to take the documents you need for court, destroy the evidence. Chidinma's head snapped up. When? Tonight. He said tonight while you're at Yemi's. He knows your routines, knows you won't be home. Chidinma pulled out her phone and called Inspector Taiwo. The house in Victoria Island was dark when Chidinma arrived with Inspector Taiwo and 2 other officers. They'd parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, watching the compound from the shadows of a neighbor's wall. It was 11 p.m., and the street was quiet except for the distant sound of generators and the occasional car passing on Amadou Bello Way. Are you sure about this? Inspector Taiwo asked quietly. If your sister is lying, if this is a trap. It's not, Chidinma said with more confidence than she felt. She'd spent the last 3 hours with Adana, reviewing everything, checking her story against the evidence they already had. The pieces fit too perfectly to be fabricated. The mysterious withdrawals from Emeka's secret account, now explained by his second family. The trips to Aja he'd claimed were business meetings. The sudden interest in getting full ownership of the house, because he'd promised it to Blessing. A black Mercedes SUV pulled up to the compound gate. 3 men got out, rough-looking guys in dark clothing. The security guard, who should have questioned them, simply opened the gate and waved them through. He paid off the guard, Chidinma whispered. Smart. They watched as the men entered the house through the back door, the same door Chidinma had used weeks ago when she'd snuck in to copy Emeka's files. The men had flashlights, and through the windows, Chidinma could see them moving through her home office, pulling out drawers, rifling through cabinets. Now? One of the officers asked. Inspector Taiwo nodded. Now. They moved fast. The officers went in through the front door while Inspector Taiwo and Chidinma took the back. The men inside barely had time to react before they were surrounded, caught red-handed with armfuls of documents and Chidinma's backup laptop. Nobody move! Inspector Taiwo shouted. Lagos State Police. One of the men tried to run, but the officer tackled him in the hallway. The other 2 surrendered immediately, dropping the documents and raising their hands. Chidinma recognized one of them. He'd done construction work for Emeka's failed real estate venture 2 years ago. Where is he? Chidinma demanded. Where's Emeka? The construction worker shook his head. He's not here, madam. He said to just get the documents and bring them to him. Where? The man hesitated, then glanced at Inspector Taiwo's stern expression and the handcuffs being pulled out. Aja. Number 15, Graceland Estate. But please, madam, I have a family. So do I, Chidinma cut him off. Or I did, before your boss destroyed it. The drive to Aja took 45 minutes through Lagos's late-night traffic. Chidinma sat in the back of Inspector Taiwo's car, her heart pounding with a mixture of rage and something darker, anticipation. She was about to confront not just her cheating husband, but the complete scope of his betrayal. Graceland Estate was a modest gated community, far less luxurious than Victoria Island. The houses were smaller, simpler, the kind of place a man might stash a secret family when he couldn't afford to keep them in the style his wife lived in. Number 15 was a small 3-bedroom bungalow with a well-tended garden. Lights glowed in the windows, and through the curtains, Chidinma could see movement, a woman walking past, carrying a child. Inspector Taiwo knocked on the door. After a moment, it opened to reveal a pretty woman in her late 20s, wearing a nightgown and holding a sleepy toddler on her hip. Her eyes widened when she saw the police uniforms. Can I help you? She asked in a soft voice. We're looking for Emeka Okafor, Inspector Taiwo said. My husband? Confusion crossed her face. He's inside. Is something wrong? Your husband. The words hit Chidinma like a slap. This woman, Blessing, genuinely believed she was married to Emeka. She had no idea she was the other woman. Or maybe, Chidinma realized with a sick feeling, she thought Chidinma was the other woman. Emeka appeared behind Blessing, and the color drained from his face when he saw Chidinma standing with the police. Chidi. Don't, she cut him off. Don't say my name. Don't say anything except the truth. She looked at Blessing, at the little boy in her arms who did indeed have Emeka's eyes. How long have you been with him? Blessing looked between them, dawning horror on her face. Who are you? I'm his wife, Chidinma said. His legal wife. We've been married for 5 years. Who are you? I'm his wife too, Blessing whispered. We had a traditional marriage 3 years ago. He said he was divorced, that his ex-wife was bitter and trying to ruin his life. There was no divorce, Chidinma said flatly. There was no ex-wife. There was just me, working myself to death to support him while he built a second life with you. The toddler started crying, sensing the tension. Blessing clutched him tighter, tears streaming down her face. Emeka, tell me she's lying. Tell me you didn't. I can explain, Emeka started, but Inspector Taiwo cut him off. Emeka Okafor, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit burglary, and bigamy. You have the right to remain silent. Bigamy? Emeka's laugh was harsh, desperate. You can't prove bigamy. We had a traditional ceremony, not a legal one. It doesn't count. Maybe not in court, Chidinma said softly. But it counts here. It counts to her. She gestured to Blessing, who was now sobbing openly, the little boy wailing in her arms. It counts to your son. You made her believe you loved her, that you'd chosen her, that you were building a life together. Just like you made me believe the same thing. She turned to Blessing. I'm sorry. I know you didn't know. I know you're a victim in this too. How could you? Blessing's voice rose, directed at Emeka. I gave up everything for you. My family disowned me because I refused to marry the man they chose. I moved to Lagos alone, worked as a secretary to support us while you built your business. I believed every lie you told me. Both of us did, Chidinma said quietly. But we don't have to anymore. As the officers handcuffed Emeka and read him his rights, Chidinma watched his face cycle through emotions, shock, anger, calculation, and finally, defeat. This was the man she'd loved, the man she'd pledged her life to. And he'd betrayed not just her, but multiple women, creating layers of deception so complex that even now, she wasn't sure she knew the full extent of it. How many others? She asked as they led him to the car. How many other women, Emeka? How many other lies? He just looked at her with empty eyes and said nothing. Back at the police station, as they processed Emeka and charged him with multiple crimes, Chidinma sat in the waiting area with Blessing. The other woman had asked to come, leaving her son with a neighbor, desperate for answers that only Chidinma could provide. Did you love him? Blessing asked. Really love him? Chidinma considered the question. I loved who I thought he was. A man with ambition who just needed support. A man who was faithful and honest. But that man never existed. He was always a mirage, showing me what I wanted to see while hiding who he really was. What will you do now? Blessing asked. Fight, Chidinma said simply. Fight to get back everything he stole from me, my money, my property, my dignity, my peace. What about you? Blessing looked down at her hands. I have a son. Emeka's son. I thought he'd take care of us, but now. She laughed bitterly. Now I realize he was taking care of us with your money. Everything, the rent, the food, the clothes, it all came from you. The weight of that revelation settled between them. Chidinma had been supporting Emeka's second family without even knowing it existed. Every naira she'd earned, every long day at the bank, every sacrifice she'd made, some of it had gone to this woman and her child. She should have been angry. She wanted to be angry. But looking at Blessing's young face, at the fear and shame and regret there, she felt something else, a strange kinship. They were both women who'd trusted the wrong man, who'd built their lives on foundations of lies. I'll help you, Chidinma heard herself say. With lawyers, with finding a job, whatever you need. Not for him. For your son. That boy deserves better than to grow up with a criminal father and no support. Blessing's eyes filled with fresh tears. Why would you help me? I'm the other woman. No, Chidinma corrected gently. You're another victim. There's a difference. Can you believe Emeka had a whole other family? Would you help the other woman in Chidinma's position? Comment your thoughts. One more chapter to go, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Don't miss the final confrontation and how Chidinma gets her ultimate revenge. If this story is hitting you in the feels, share it with your friends. 6 months later, Chidinma stood in the Lagos High Court, her navy blue suit crisp and her head held high. The courtroom was packed, journalists, curious onlookers, and everyone who'd once whispered about her scandal, now hungry to see the final chapter of her revenge story. Emeka sat at the defendant's table, his once proud shoulders slumped, his expensive suit replaced with a wrinkled shirt. The man who'd tried to destroy her looked destroyed himself. Beside him, his lawyer shuffled papers with the resigned air of someone who knew they'd already lost. Judge Adebayo, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the final documents. This is quite the case, she said, her voice carrying across the courtroom. Fraud, bigamy, conspiracy, theft, blackmail, and emotional manipulation. Mr. Okafor, you've been a busy man. The prosecution had been devastating. Chidinma's team, led by the formidable barrister Adeyemi, had presented every piece of evidence meticulously. The edited videos Emeka had created to frame her. The financial records showing his fraud scheme with Alhaji Musa. Bank statements from his secret account. Testimony from Adana about the planned burglary. Testimony from Blessing about his bigamy and lies. Testimony from the construction workers he'd hired to break into Chidinma's house. Even Al-Haji Musa himself had testified, turning state's evidence to save himself, admitting that Emeka had approached him with the fraud scheme, not Chidinma. The property developer confirmed that Chidinma had actually saved him money legally, while Emeka had tried to skim off the top for himself. The intimate photos Emeka had leaked, they'd backfired spectacularly when Barrister Adeyemi proved they'd been edited and distributed without consent, adding charges of revenge porn and defamation to his growing list of crimes. Mr. Okafor, Judge Adebayo continued, you systematically attempted to destroy your wife's career, reputation, and financial security. You manipulated her sister, deceived another woman into a fake marriage, and created a pattern of fraud that extended across multiple businesses. How do you plead? Emeka stood slowly. For a moment, Chidinma thought he might try one last manipulation, one final lie. But he just said, guilty, Your Honor. A ripple went through the courtroom. Even his lawyer looked surprised. On all counts, the judge asked. On all counts. Judge Adebayo nodded. Then let's proceed to sentencing. But first, I want to hear from the victims. Chidinma stood, her hands steady on the witness stand. She looked at Emeka, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. This man who'd once seemed so charming, so full of potential, had wasted it all on lies and schemes and betrayals. Your Honor, she began, 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I'd lost my marriage, my sister's trust, my reputation, my place in my community. I was publicly humiliated, professionally threatened, emotionally devastated. But something happened through all that pain. I found out who I really was. She gestured to the packed courtroom. Everyone here whispered about me. They believed the lies. They thought the scandal made me dirty, shameful, less than. But I learned that other people's judgments say more about them than about me. I learned that standing up for yourself, fighting back against domestic betrayal and emotional manipulation, isn't weakness, it's strength. I got promoted at work. I'm now head of special investigations at First Bank, catching men like my ex-husband who think they can cheat the system. I've helped 3 other women escape marriages filled with financial abuse. I've reconnected with my sister, who made terrible mistakes but had the courage to admit them and help bring him to justice. Chidinma looked directly at Emeka. You tried to destroy me. Instead, you made me stronger, smarter, more successful than I ever was when I was carrying you through life. So thank you, Emeka. Thank you for showing me that I never needed you. I was always enough on my own. Blessing testified next, holding her son, Chukwudi, on her hip. The little boy had Emeka's eyes but Blessing's gentle spirit. I believed his lies because I wanted to believe someone could love me. But real love doesn't hide in shadows. Real love doesn't require lies. I'm raising my son to be honest, to treat women with respect, to value truth over convenience. He'll know what his father was, and he'll choose to be better. Adana was the last to speak, her young face marked by the hard lessons she'd learned. I betrayed my sister because I was jealous, stupid, and selfish. I thought she had everything and I had nothing. But she gave me everything, her love, her support, her guidance. And I threw it away for a man who saw me as a tool to hurt her. Tears streamed down Adana's face. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back sleeping with my sister's husband. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of her forgiveness. She's letting me live with her and Yemi while I finish my degree. She's paying for therapy so I can understand why I made such terrible choices. She's giving me a second chance I don't deserve. Judge Adebayo listened to everything, then delivered her verdict. Mr. Emeka Okafor, I hereby sentence you to 7 years in Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison for fraud, 3 years concurrent for conspiracy, and 2 years concurrent for the various other charges. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to Mrs. Chidinma Okafor in the amount of 45 million naira, representing half the value of all marital assets plus damages for emotional distress and defamation. She paused, looking at him with cold disgust. You are also ordered to pay child support to Miss Blessing Adebla for your son Chukwudi, and to have no contact with any of the victims in this case upon your release. You manipulated, betrayed, and attempted to destroy multiple women who trusted you. This court finds your behavior reprehensible and deserving of the maximum penalty. As they led Emeka away in handcuffs, he looked back at Chidinma one last time. She met his gaze steadily, her expression neither triumphant nor bitter, just done. This chapter of her life was closing, and she was ready for what came next. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Chidinma stood on the steps with Barrister Adeyemi, Yemi, Adana, and surprisingly, Blessing and little Chukwudi. Mrs. Okafor, how do you feel about the verdict? A journalist called. Justice was served, Chidinma said simply. Not just for me, but for all women dealing with domestic betrayal, infidelity, and emotional manipulation in their marriages. We don't have to stay silent. We don't have to accept abuse or lies. We have the power to fight back, and we have the right to win. What's next for you? Another reporter asked. Chidinma smiled, genuine and free for the first time in months. I'm living my life. I'm excelling at my career. I'm rebuilding my relationship with my sister. I'm helping other women escape toxic marriages. I'm choosing myself, every single day. 3 months after the trial, Chidinma stood in her newly renovated home, the house she'd fought so hard to keep. She'd changed everything Emeka had touched, new furniture, new paint, new energy. This wasn't the house she'd shared with a cheating spouse. This was her sanctuary. Adana lived in the guest room, but their relationship was different now, more honest, more equal. They'd gone to therapy together, working through the betrayal and manipulation, learning to trust again. Adana had gotten an internship at a marketing firm, was excelling in her final year at university, and had started dating a kind young man who treated her with respect. Blessing visited sometimes with Chukwudi. She'd gotten a job at a tech startup, was saving money to buy her own place. The two women, Emeka's wife and Emeka's mistress, had formed an unlikely friendship, bonded by their shared experience of surviving his lies. They'd even started a support group for women dealing with infidelity in marriage, meeting every Tuesday evening to share stories and strategies. Chidinma's career had skyrocketed. Her Special Investigations Unit had uncovered 3 major fraud schemes in its first quarter, saving First Bank millions. She'd been featured in This Day newspaper, interviewed on channels television, invited to speak at conferences about financial integrity and women's empowerment. But the best revenge wasn't professional success or financial victory. It was peace. It was waking up every morning without anxiety twisting her stomach. It was going to church with her head held high, ignoring the few remaining whispers. It was rebuilding trust with Adana slowly, carefully, but genuinely. It was learning to love herself without needing validation from a man. On a Sunday afternoon, Chidinma sat on her newly furnished balcony overlooking Victoria Island, sipping palm wine with Yemi and watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky orange and purple. "You did it," Yemi said softly. "You survived the worst betrayal and came out stronger." Chidinma smiled. "We did it. I couldn't have survived without you." "That's what sisters do," Yemi said. "Real sisters. Not like," she stopped, glancing toward the house where Adana was cooking dinner. "She's my sister too," Chidinma said. "She made a terrible mistake, but she's trying to make it right. That takes courage." Her phone buzzed, a message from Mr. Okonkwo. Another promotion opportunity, this time regional director. More responsibility, more money, more proof that surviving betrayal didn't mean shrinking away from life. It meant claiming even more of it. Chidinma looked out at the city she loved, chaotic, beautiful Lagos with all its complexities and contradictions. She'd been born here, survived here, thrived here. She'd been betrayed by the people closest to her and had emerged not broken but rebuilt, stronger at all the places she'd been shattered. This was her revenge, not destroying Emeka, though he'd destroyed himself. Her revenge was living well, loving fearlessly, and refusing to let betrayal define her story. She was the author now, writing her own chapters, creating her own happy ending. And it was just beginning. What an incredible journey! From catching her husband cheating to exposing his crimes to rebuilding her life, Chidinma showed us what real strength looks like. What was your favorite moment in this revenge story? Comment below. If you loved this African marriage drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell for more emotional stories about betrayal, infidelity, and triumph. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that you can survive domestic betrayal and come out stronger. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. And remember, your story isn't over just because someone betrayed you. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming the best version of yourself. See you in the next story. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.